Welcome to Undercomplicating Stuff, where we, two psychologists and coaches with a combined 40 years of experience, share our insights to help undercomplicate important topics. A friendly reminder that this video is meant for conversational and entertainment purposes only. Please see the information section below this video for additional resources. So I'm Dr. Julie Radico. I am a psychologist, a coach, an author, and a speaker. And I'm here with Dr. Gedeon.
Thanks, Julie. Stacey Gedeon. I'm a health psychologist and the founder and CEO of a healthcare consulting and professional coaching business. And our question today is one I'm really excited about. It's one that I speak on a lot, and you probably do as well, Julie. So the question was, what are some signs that my workplace has good psychological safety or is psychologically safe? How do we know this? And people may be familiar with Amy Edmondson, who's the guru, the pioneer, has written lots of books about psychological safety. And there are some misconceptions. So I think it's important to start off with what does it really mean? And it involves things like being able to take risks at work without fear of retaliation and punishment. And by risks, I don't mean you're going to do something that's dangerous for yourself or your coworkers. Let's say you're in a meeting and the person leading the meeting is going through their agenda, but you have something that you think would be really helpful to add, but maybe it's a little bit out of the box. Do you feel safe enough in that environment with that team to speak up? Or are you fearful that you'll be criticized? That's sort of one component if you're able to speak up about your ideas. Also, if you're able to admit your mistakes, that's a high psychologically safe environment when people within the team, and it's really important for leaders to say, you know what, I goofed on this one and I thought it was this, it turns out it's that. And that really demonstrates that you feel safe enough to do that. One thing that people often get wrong about psychological safety is they think it means that the whole team is overly nice and nobody disagrees and everybody gets along and they're holding hands in a circle. That's not psychological safety. Psychological safety is when you're able to have disagreements, but it's done so in a respectful way so that ideas are generated and they're built upon each other. If you've ever been in a setting where you did a yes and exercise, it's kind of a fun thing and it demonstrates psychological safety where someone brings up an out of the box idea and the next person says yes and they maybe come up with a more outrageous idea. And the whole purpose of it is to think beyond what we would normally think. And we can't do that if we don't have psychological safety.
Psychological safety doesn't mean that everybody is friends with everybody and everybody's happy all the time and nobody ever gets constructive criticism. It means that you can mess up, you can be authentic, you can show up how you are, and that you're a flawed human being who is going to make mistakes and have spelling errors in their, documents, or is going to, send an email before they read it twice, or, like you're going to make mistakes. And that when you do, it's modeled for you by leadership, and it's also accepted in a way of like you're given constructive criticism, or you're given feedback, you're given growth opportunities in a way that is kind. That like I clearly am expressing, Stacey, I still value you. You need to read that email again before you send it. Like, and in a way of, yeah, like this isn't, Stacey, you're a terrible, horrible person. I don't know why you even tried to send an email. Like, there's a difference in that you're going to be afraid to speak up for or voice an opinion that's different. You will sometimes hear stories in healthcare where people are standing in an operating room and they're noticing something might have been missed or something seems off, and everybody is afraid to speak up. And it's because there's not psychological safety in that room. And what happens then is that somebody might end up really hurt and people are afraid. And it's really draining to work in an environment that you don't feel psychologically safe in. If you're not able to go to work in like knowing that you're a full human being who's got a life outside of work, and so you might come in and you're at 60% that day. You're at 80%, or you went from 80% in the morning to 60% in the afternoon, and you're still giving it your best, but you need some compassion and some kindness and somebody to meet you where you're at in an authentic, real human kind of way. If you feel afraid to show the fact that you're like, I need to check in with somebody, or I need a break, or I need to take a moment to call somebody outside of work, or like just any of that, being an authentic human is you're afraid to do that, like is somehow going to get you into trouble. Like that's a warning sign that you might be in an environment that really needs to have some recalibration and adjustment in its psychological safety.
To add to some of those warning signs, some people misconstrue silence as if everybody's in agreement. So let's say, again, imagine a meeting you're in whatever context, and the person leading the meeting, everybody's nodding there, and nobody's disagreeing, nobody's offering up any opinions. I don't care who you are, nobody's that good to have all the answers. And it might indicate that people just don't feel safe disagreeing or offering different opinions. So we might call that sort of a yes culture, where everybody just nods and agrees. Yep, great idea, great idea. Another thing that you can do, there are online assessments that you can take to determine if you feel like you're in a psychologically safe workplace. And let me mention, it's on a continuum. So it's not an either or. It's a continuum of psychological safety. And it may vary between teams and within the whole organization. But let's say you don't want to do the assessment. You're like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. One thing that can be telling, which is what I ask people when they come to me with this issue, is there a meeting after the meeting? So you're in a meeting, you're sitting there, everybody's nodding, agreeing, yep, great idea. Great. And on the way back to your workstation or your office or wherever you need to be, there's these other conversations where people are saying, yeah, I didn't really agree with that, or I was going to bring this up because we tried that last time. And that's really telling. When there's a meeting after the meeting, it kind of says, ooh, this maybe is not safe. And as a leader, one thing you could do, let's say you're bringing up a new idea or a change to a group of people, you can assign somebody to play the devil's advocate and have that person rotate in different meetings. So their job is to poke holes in things, again, to Dr. Radico's point, in a way that's kind and supportive and respectful. And so then everybody learns, okay, yeah, we can disagree in this way. And the person who's receiving the feedback is receptive to that and takes it into consideration. It may not mean that they change their mind about it, but the point is that you're feeling heard and respected. And there's that teamwork that gets built, which also leads to more innovation. And to your point earlier, increases safety for everybody in the workplace.
Yeah, having settings where people can be creative and bring up different perspectives really helps the work of the team. There's research that talks about if you have people with lots of differing perspectives on a team, you are going to have a better outcome. You're going to be able to create something that's so much more unique or fits the needs of more people if you've got more people who are able to contribute to those ideas. I'm mindful that, sometimes it's hard to gauge if, as a leader, you might be listening and going like, well, how do I know if there's psychological safety? Like sometimes people are quiet in the meetings. Does that mean that it's not psychologically safe? Having check-ins, doing surveys that are anonymous that you will then act upon or make change from. Got to make change from the survey, because otherwise it's just you're gathering data and people get frustrated. Uh, but finding ways to have check-ins in a way that if there's not psychological safety, you're not going to get people to fess up to, oh yeah, you're a terrible boss. I don't feel comfortable with you. Like that's a really asking a lot to expect that somebody's going to tell you that. So finding ways to check in with people who maybe are more like aligned with your like leadership level, or having other people come in to observe, or asking for people and feedback in an anonymous type of way, gathering data and then acting upon it in a way of creating norms. You as a leader need to set the standard. So I'll share that in committees that I've led in the past, I have learned from prior experiences that didn't have as much psychological safety as I would have wanted, being like a member, that then when I was in leadership positions, my day one level setting conversation is sharing with everybody in the room, everybody on that committee, you are all valid. Your opinions are valid. Please do not hesitate to speak up at any point in time and share a perspective that you're not hearing or that you feel like you're not sure how it's going to land. It is welcome in our conversations because we need to hear all of the thoughts that are coming up. Otherwise, we can't consider it. We can't benefit from it. And we might, I, as a leader, am not perfect. So I might come up with a direction for the group or, the committee, and they might be like, Julie, that's not where we want to go. That's not helpful. I won't know that unless you create this culture of allowing people to speak up. And so if you're like, wow, it's not day one anymore, it's day 500, it's still never too late to reset that, to welcome people in, create an environment where people feel welcome to throw in ideas, to create and generate and brainstorm contributions to the team, and being really thoughtful about if you're not picking somebody's approach, that it's not because, oh, Julie submitted that, so we're not picking it. It's a, hey, this is a great idea. This was really thoughtful. These are the things that were really amazing about it. And we are going with this approach right now because of these reasons. Please know that we want you to keep contributing in this way, that this was a really good, thoughtful product, and that we actually are going to keep it in our idea book, like our toolbox for the future. And we really appreciate your contributions, like being mindful that we run on reinforcement. And so if you are creating an environment where you're asking people to contribute. You're like, you are all valid. I want you to contribute. And then repeatedly, maybe just because of the circumstances or how it works out, people feel like they are getting invalidated when they contribute. Like their idea never gets picked. Their, thoughts are always the ones that you're like, oh, yeah, that's really cool, but we're going to go this way. Be cognizant of that you're sending a message, even if you're not intending to, that might start to make that person feel like, oh, well, no, you're just talking and you're not actually like walking the walk here. And so really following through on reinforcing, whether it's in conversations about that you're really thankful that that person contributed and why they did, but being really mindful of being consistent in creating that safety of we want you to contribute and we value your contributions. And if for some reason it's not working out, that what they're contributing is what's being chosen, that you really don't want that to send a message that you are invalidating them. You want them to keep trying. You want them to keep contributing.
I think those are such important points. And it's much like you mentioned earlier, if you do a survey and you don't give feedback, research shows it's worse than not doing a survey at all. And related to that, following up with somebody and explaining why their idea, their direction wasn't chosen is brilliant. The other thing that comes to my mind that's really important for psychological safety and creating it or maintaining it, to all the points you just listed, Julie, is it has to be intentional. This isn't just something that happens. It's not like the air in the office. You have to create it and you have to tend to it. And you have to keep your eyes and your feelers out for, okay, is this team kind of struggling with it or am I struggling with it? As well as when you get new people in the mix and there's turnover and changes and different dynamics. So it's something that you always have to be focusing on and paying attention to so that you get the outcomes that you're wanting for your team and for yourself and the organization. And so many takeaways. I think the one that stands out to me is that psychological safety isn't about niceness and avoiding conflict. When you're in a psychologically safe environment, you're free to have conflict or disagreement in a way that is respectful and supportive of everyone involved.
Such amazing takeaways. I just want to emphasize the idea that this is an intentional practice, that sometimes we can fluke into finding out that our work environments are psychologically safe. Most of the time, though, this takes intentionality on part of the leaders, on part of the people on the team, that if there's conflict, you're going to that person directly. If there is constructive feedback or there's criticism that needs to be shared, it's a constructive, kind, thoughtful, not at that person kind of way, but hey, I hear where you're coming from. I wonder if this might help us get there in a different perspective, a different way. Finding ways to create a culture where the norm is supporting each other. The norm is kindness. And that often doesn't just magically happen. So if you're listening to this and you are not sure if you work in a psychologically safe environment, or you're like, I don't think my environment is psychologically safe. If you're in a leadership position, please do something about that. If you're not in a leadership position, talk to the other people around you that you feel comfortable with. Maybe it is going to leadership and checking in a way of like, hey, I sort of noticed that when we have these meetings, sometimes I'm not sure if people feel as comfortable as they could speaking up. You don't have to like put it on yourself. You don't have to put it on somebody else directly, but kind of like talk about the culture that you're seeing in a way of trying to then brainstorm and create model like with that leader. How can we maybe think of ways to get people to feel more comfortable? Like really being intentional about creating this safe work environment, because it doesn't always just happen naturally. And that's okay. But it then means like you need to be intentional about it because you're going to get so much benefit and all the reasons we talked about. Like people are going to be more creative, they're going to feel more energized, or they might actually like want to come to work more than they might right now if they are feeling like, oh, when I go to work, there are people I feel supported by there. And even if my ideas aren't always the best, I know that they're welcomed. And so if this resonated with you, please share it with somebody that you care about. Also, please like, comment, subscribe. You can reach us on our LinkedIn or our YouTube page with suggestions for questions that you'd like us to discuss in future episodes.